They say the strongest weapon in the world isn't built of steel or launched from a missile silo. It's made of paper, painted green, and stamped with the promise, "In God we trust." But behind that promise lies something far more powerful: control. A power so immense that nations rise or crumble depending on who holds it. This is the story of how the US dollar became the most powerful weapon in the world. It begins not with war, but with fear, the kind of fear that follows chaos. The year is 1944. The world is bleeding from the wounds of the Second World War. Cities lie in ashes. Empires that once ruled continents now beg for stability. In a small town in New Hampshire called Bretton Woods, delegates from 44 nations gather. They come with hope, exhaustion, and desperation. The question on every table: how can the world rebuild without collapsing again? The answer came in the form of a deal that would change everything. The United States, untouched by war's devastation, held nearly 2/3 of the world's gold reserves. It offered the world something irresistible: stability. The US dollar, they said, would be backed by gold, and every other currency would be tied to the dollar. Simple, safe, trustworthy. But beneath that promise was the first seed of power. Because whoever controls the standard controls the system. As Europe rebuilt, dollars flowed like blood through its veins. The Marshall Plan poured billions across the Atlantic, not as pure aid, but as an investment in American dominance. Every road rebuilt, every factory revived, was tied quietly but firmly to the US dollar. For a while it worked. The dollar became the heartbeat of global trade. Gold backed it. Trust fueled it. Nations prospered under its glow. But time has a way of testing promises. By the 1960s, the world began to notice something strange. The US was spending more dollars abroad than it had gold to back them at home. Wars, like the one in Vietnam, drained its coffers. The illusion of infinite wealth began to flicker. Countries like France started asking for their gold back, shipping dollars to Washington and demanding bullion in return. And in 1971, President Richard Nixon faced a choice: keep the promise or keep control. He chose control. In a single televised speech, Nixon severed the dollar's link to gold. Overnight, the system collapsed. But something unexpected happened. The dollar didn't die. It got stronger, because the world was already trapped in its web. Every central bank held dollars. Every global transaction, from wheat to weapons, flowed through the American system. Soon, the US found its next move, one that would lock the dollar's power in place forever. In the deserts of the Middle East, a quiet agreement was made. The US would offer military protection to Saudi Arabia, and in return, every barrel of oil sold worldwide would be priced in US dollars. The petrodollar was born. It was genius and terrifying. Now, if a country wanted oil, it needed dollars. And if it wanted dollars, it had to trade with America, borrow from America, or rely on its banks. In a single stroke, the dollar became not just money, but a weapon. From that moment on, wars were no longer just fought with bombs. They were fought with sanctions, interest rates, and banking systems. A country could be isolated, strangled, without a single shot being fired. The US didn't need to conquer nations, it could simply cut them off. Decades rolled by, and the dollar reigned supreme. When the Soviet Union fell, global capitalism surged, and every new market that opened in dollars. The internet boom, the financial revolution, the credit explosion, all were built on the same foundation. The world was addicted. But addiction breeds dependency, and dependency breeds fear. After the 9/11 attacks, the US began using its financial networks for more than just trade. Every transaction became traceable, every bank connected. SWIFT, the global payment system, became the nervous system of international finance, and America held the switch. When Iran was sanctioned, its economy suffocated. When Russia invaded Ukraine, entire banks were frozen overnight. The world watched, stunned, as trillions of dollars became invisible handcuffs. It was brilliant and brutal, because now the dollar wasn't just the global currency, it was the global judge. But every empire of control creates resistance. China began building its own payment systems. Russia turned to gold and energy as leverage. Digital currencies, blockchain, and whispers of de-dollarization spread like wildfire. And in the background, nations quietly ask themselves, what happens if the weapon turns on us? The world today runs on invisible threads: banks, servers, and algorithms. Every purchase, every loan, every import is tethered to a currency born in the ashes of war. Yet, behind the facade of green notes and digital digits lies a truth. The dollar's strength comes not from faith alone, but from force. The force of belief, of military might, and of global dependence. The irony is that the same weapon that built order now breeds uncertainty. As America's debt rises and rival economies grow, whispers of a post-dollar world get louder. But for now, the weapon still stands, silent, cold, and unmatched. Every time a country faces sanctions, every time oil changes hands, every time a central bank looks for safety, the same question echoes through the halls of power. What is the true cost of the world's most powerful currency? Because the US dollar is more than paper. It's trust. It's leverage. It's the quiet hand that turns the gears of civilization, and the hidden dagger that keeps it in line. In the end, it wasn't an army or an empire or a machine that conquered the modern world. It was an idea, printed, promised, and protected by the full faith of the United States of America. And until that faith breaks, the dollar will remain the most powerful weapon ever created. Thanks for watching. If you found this story fascinating, be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden forces that shape our world.